Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today I have a very special guest. It is Ian Walker. Ian's mission is to be a positive role model for adults and children who have ADHD. In the fall of 2018, Ian's autobiography, Stirring My Soul to Sing, Overcoming ADHD Through Song, was released. Although Ian was told he had a learning disability in the early 1970s, he was not formally diagnosed with the disorder until 1996. In the intervening years, he experienced verbal abuse, school bullying, poor academic performance, employment instability, financial hardship, and failed relationships. Despite the challenges, he persevered and now holds a degree in theater and film, a postgraduate certification in fundraising and volunteer management, and is a successful art consultant with over 30 years of experience. A high-achieving ADHD survivor, Ian serves a testament to countless ADHD sufferers that music can do a better job of improving their lives than medicine. In fact, Ian will tell your audience that music saved his life and cured him of his disorder. This music man and art professional takes audience behind the lyrics, melodies, and ovations in his book to lay bare the practical lessons he has learned in coping with ADHD for over 50 years. Ian recounts the beginning of his vocal career in the 1980s as bass baritone and chorister with the Toronto Mendelssohn Youth Choir. He shares special memories with his involvement in 1981 with the Boston University Tanglewood Institute, the Young Artist Vocal Program, where he met Leonard Bernstein and interacted with other well-known classical musicians and artists. Especially influential is Ian's long-lasting friendship with Canadian and international classical soprano Adrienne Bisonka. Ian also relates moments and events with he was mentored by Canadian international icons Robert Cooper, the late Marine Forrester, C.C. Contralto, and was privileged to have a unique friendship mentor with founder, producer, and choral entrepreneur, the late Nicholas Goldsmith. Ian shares how he continues pursuing his dreams despite his ADHD, actively promoting many projects, including producing, writing, and broadcasting for Christian television networks. Stirring My Soul to Sing, Overcoming ADHD Through Song is an encouragement for everyone or any parent of a child faced with overcoming the daunting obstacles connected with ADHD. Let Ian's story give you hope. So welcome to my show.
Bang. That's a great way to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what you told me about yourself. And
exactly. Yep.
So there is so much in your story that we really want to hear, like, if there was something like a start like this in your years and now you're a professional, what had happened that really helped you to transform in such a massive way?
Well, let's let's show the book. So here we go. Okay. Oh crap! It's doing that that funny thing. Okay. Well, we'll make sure that you have the links to that. It really started when I was between 10 and 12 years old. And, I always sort of knew that I was hyperactive. That 70s term, hyperactive. And, but I didn't know how music could really make a huge difference in my life, and more or less music therapy. And so I come from a very musical family. Actually, for your listeners that are New Kids on the Block fans, my third cousins are Jonathan and Jordan Knight. So and you know, they're part Canadians, and you know, I think they probably have more. They have dual citizenship, but they were both born in Canada. And so in my mother's side of the family, incredible musical talent and artistic talent. We have a lot of singers, you know, and my second cousins now, and it was a very musical, artistic family. So when I was about 10 years old, between 10 and 12 years old, I think I started just a little bit back. I started my voice lessons around 9. And my grandmother was an incredible pianist, organist, music director. And so she really started to take me under her wing. My mom was also a singer too. So mom was very good at sight reading and getting the rhythms right and sort of all of that kind of stuff. So I have both of these incredible ladies working with me. And as we found out that I had what was, you know, known as, you know, attention deficit disorder that has now later developed into ADHD, you know, it kind of was a whole shock to the system. And even so much so that we decided as a family to seek counseling. We had a very progressive, wonderful German doctor here in Hamilton, and he was not really convinced that putting, you know, me on drugs was the way to go. And so my mom was studying to be a nurse, and so there was lots of conversations back and forth with the doctor about this. And so, you know, by that time I had already started to have the beginnings of a singing career, was getting known sort of, you know, as a voice soprano in different areas in Hamilton and surrounding areas. And so he said to my parents, he said, Ian wants to sing and be an actor, singer, whatever, musician. Let's take him off the medication and see what happens. And so when I was around 13, they took me off the medication and I never went back on it again. Music therapy was really my thing. And I didn't even know it, you know, I really didn't know it until like my 20s and went, wow, something is really different with my ADHD, you know, with my levels, with my temperaments, with all of these kinds of things. And, you know, and thus I just carried on until, you know, throughout some of my education times, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But it was, it really started about 2008, 2009, when I started to really get really strong promptings that I should write a book. And so when I started to write the book, it was very hard. There was issues I hadn't thought about or didn't want to go back and revisit. But then as I got into it, I really realized, you know, the therapy there was to talk about it. And so it took 10 years to find the right publisher to get the book published. But I'm just so overwhelmed now. It's gone into 43 international bookstores and websites. And, you know, there's some more like spin-offs. I'll tell you about some of the other new things that are coming on a bit later. And obviously there's a need, and obviously people are looking for alternatives, you know, to the standard ADHD medication for children.
Mm. How did this show up for you being a child? Like, can you describe a little bit more, like you're
Yeah.
having this?
So you know, I was your typical ADHD kid, a social butterfly. So, you know, I'd get my work done, and then I'd, you know, we'd be in desks in those days, right? Or like in a quad. And being in Canada, you know, we were in a quad. So then I'd finish my work, everything except math, fast. And then I'd go off and, you know, bother my neighbor or whatever. And when I was reviewing my port cards, Ian needs to be in his own area. He can't, you know, get up and bother his neighbor. you know, and but the thing was, and why I think I'm also different from other ADHD kids, I was a reader. I was in what was called in the 60s a reading readiness class. And this teacher was just amazing. And so, you know, I learned how to read very quickly. And thus, as a, you know, I loved to read. I loved picture books as a kid. We used to go to the library all the time. I'd come back with like 4 or 5 books all the time, you know. And I think that's where, you know, I started to expand on some of my own interests and, you know, interests in the arts and other aspects. And, you know, and my mind was constantly focused or creative. You know, I can still remember some beautiful, beautiful picture books of the illustrations that, you know, this one about Cinderella that I chased forever to find it. And I found it and then I didn't buy it because it was too expensive. But the thing was, is obviously there was some impression to, you know, to art, to drama, to music that was really, you know, starting to really lead the way towards peace, towards tranquility, you know. And I didn't know it then, but, you know, seeds were already being mightily, you know, challenged. And then the other thing was, I was in, so we moved just outside of Hamilton to a small little suburb called Dundas, Ontario, which is very quaint. And the other school was really into the reading readiness things, when they weren't so much into the mathematics. And when we went to the other school, they were very heavily into the mathematics. I should have repeated grade 1, but they kept pushing me through, and they pushed me through all the way up to grade 5. And so as a result, I have what I call a math deficiency. You know, I have real trauma. I mean, I have to use a you know, calculator all the time because I can't think numbers in my head, you know, even this day. Sometimes it's a little better, but why do all that when you can use the calculator? So so that was the issue, that, you know, I was good in all the reading, writing, in history and geography, all of those great subjects. And then later on in high school, you know, I studied French and German and loved it. And you know, but math was always my downfall. And so, you know, in high school, I dropped it in grade 10. You know, it was just adding more anxiety to my life, that, you know, especially having to go through exams and not even trying to remember if I could get through it.
Yeah, so on the one hand, it is like you are very connected to more the artwork and what you said, writing, creating things, than repeating mathematics or there's other science as well that are totally different.
I think I'm very right-brained, if that's the right term.
Yeah. So you still have this creativity inside of you, aren't you?
Yeah. Even just recently, I just can't believe the number. I've got like 3 books on the go right now. You know, I'm writing my 2nd book. I'm working on a children's book, and you know, and I've just written a play based on the book, and it's just coming along nicely. We're gonna put it hopefully in the Hamilton Fringe Festival for July 2022. And you know, and then I'm looking for a literary agent right now, and management and some other issues. And you know, I want this play to be protected, and I want to get it out there so that it'll go across Canada and beyond. So I'm really excited about that. And I've taken the main characters of my parents, my grandma, who was, you know, the huge influence, my Aunt Olive, who was actually the New Kids on the Block's grandmother, and She was a huge artist, visual artist, and just so passionate about, you know, the visual arts and things like that. And so we'd have wonderful, wonderful conversations. And I think that's about right. Yeah, there's 5 characters. Oh, and as each narrator tells a different part, there's young Ian, there's 20s to 30s Ian, and then there's older Ian. I'm playing that role right now. Yeah. So I'm excited to, I'm excited, and I'm also like, do I really want to see my life on the stage? But I know that there's so much impact for, like, so many people are coming up to me now and, you know, and just saying, really, how did you do it? And, you know, and my life is happy now. I mean, I don't have all the trauma that I had, you know, say in my 30s or 40s, partly because, you know, I'm in my 60s now, but life is happier now. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of those other issues out of my way, roadblocks, you know, or boulders. And yeah, so it's good. And I know others can experience it too. You know, I really worry about a lot of these seniors that I'm interacting with. I'm on the ADA, Attention Deficit Disorder Association. It's an international association for people with ADHD. And actually their head director is Canadian. So that's nice to know that Dwayne's holding up the, you know, there to show the Maple Leaf proud. Okay, so but this, so they have a peer support group, and I try to join that as much as, you know, I can. It's once a week. And I just hear these people that are just newly diagnosed in their 50s or whatever, and they're being put on this heavy medication that has lots of side effects, lots of other issues, you know, could affect breathing, could affect heart, can affect all, you know, mobility. And if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't do that, you know, at this stage of the, or I would really do a lot of research as to, you know, and really at this stage of the game, what's that going to do for you, you know, medicine wise, that say, you know, you're taking other medicines for other ailments, and how do you know that it's not going to conflict, you know, with what you're taking? So, you know, like, God bless the medical industry, but do your research. You know, I mean, I'm planning to live into my 90s, so, you know, and I want to be happy, and I'm definitely going to be, you know, medication free.
Mm. What I see is that when we look into the statistic, that we have kind of an increase of children with ADHD, and that, yeah, to calm them down so that they can sit in school, be quiet, do their learnings. They are often under medication, and like, no, this is, they're getting dumb somehow, like not really, they can't express themselves. Okay, on the one hand, it's like, don't go around and yeah,
bother your neighbor.
Bother the neighbors or other children, yeah. But
yeah,
the other
thing too, the other thing is, and I think this was very prevalent in the 70s, the amount of sugar that I had as a kid. And I'm sure that attributed to a lot of my, you know, my episodes. And, you know, you think about the number of sugar, the level of sugars that's in the cereals or the soft drinks, or, you know, sort of all of that. And even now, when I have it, like, you know, get to max, I can feel it. If I go over that, I start getting headaches, or I'm sick to my stomach. So I know my own body now that I can't take any more. And, you know, but you don't know that at a 10-year-old, you know, you don't know that. And so really, if ADHD parents are listening out there, really watch the level of sugar that, your child is taking. The other thing is, and I wished I had, had a little bit more coaching or pushing in this, but I've read studies more on physical exercise really helping a lot of ADHD issues. So running or, sports, soccer, football, basketball, and kids, especially boys, are able to get, more into that kind of program. So because I was a musician and I was studying the piano and was, I also played the flute and accordion. And so all those instruments always required me to be indoors, all the time. And I can always remember my mom just sort of saying when I was just coming into my teens, she said, okay, you've done enough practicing, go out. You need some fresh air, go and I loved to bike ride at that time. So I used to do, quite a lot of bike riding. But I think if I'd had more exercise, every other day or like 3 times a week into my routine, I wonder if things would have been different. I think they probably would have been, just for my own sort of psyche and, and keeping the peace in the household, because I think I was an S disturber. So with my other siblings. So they tell me. Yes.
Yeah, so what I hear is that the lifestyle kids are growing up, like what they eat, how they exercise, also perhaps like calming down, like doing perhaps meditation also in a very early age can help.
Exactly.
Yeah?
If that works in the household, like our form of meditation, our family, because I come from a very Christian family. And so our meditation was prayer. And so we would, most nights we would have family devotions together around the table after dinner. And that wasn't always the best time because, for us kids, either as we were growing, we'd have homework or other activities, but we try, mom and dad were very good about that, just, focusing in on those times to be together as a family, eat together as a family, and pray together.
Yeah, so this sounds that even though you had at the beginning struggles and you had to take some medication, you also had something like
just 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody just recently, when I would take that medication, it didn't agree with me. My body fought it. And it's really interesting how it knew that it just did not want to do it. And so that's, yeah. So it's interesting, even as a teenager, that you knew that your body wasn't reacting in the right way towards it.
So how did it show up? Like, how could you feel that it was really acting?
Well, it was almost like really real highs and then drop, like lows. And then I'd get really lethargic, like just so sleepy, and so then I'd, pump up the caffeine, either tea or Coke or, whatever, just because this would be in my teens now and early teens. And so I was so grateful when they said I didn't have to take it anymore.
So you had like mood swings going up and down, but also this, what other people tell me, that they feel kind of tired or dumb even. They can't really feel them anymore.
And you see, like other people, because, maybe it was in the early 60s, right? So, or 70s, that they were still developing those drugs, right? Well, I don't remember there being an intense, where people have said, oh, when I take Ritalin or whatever, I feel so focused. I don't remember any of that. I just remember, just being very tired shortly after. I think I settled down a little bit, but I just remember my body just being so tired that I always wanted to sleep,
Hmm.
an hour or so after having that medication. And that's not good for a teenager, especially, as you're just trying to keep up your routines. I had music lessons, I had, church activities. And so I was so grateful that I didn't have to carry it on. But I was going to tell you, so the doctor recommended that we go as a family for counseling. And it was really, really good for our family. It showed where, there was areas of communications that we were, the six of us were bottling up in different areas. But my grandfather Walker was a pain in the ass. Okay. And he was more concerned about his reputation. And so he told my parents, don't you tell anyone that you're having therapy, like as if it's going to like bring a shame to the family. Now, okay, this was the early 70s. That might have been a little radical, but if he had seen what it did for our family communications and how we grew individually, the six of us, and as a result, like my parents passed in 2010, my mom passed in 2010, dad in 2012. And the three siblings, two boys, two girls, we are so tight because, we worked through our issues and we want to remain together, a tight knit, family. And mom and dad showed us the right way, how to do it.
Yeah, I think this is huge also to understand like what is the impact for the whole family if one kid has ADHD, because it is about how to handle this as well, and having the opportunity to have this counsel work done is, again, you can tell yourself being a lucky guy because you already got very early support in the right direction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that and I didn't know this, but there again, art therapy, I would draw pictures of myself at these sessions and they would be black. And then I would take the crayon and just rub it all over myself, like black, like so that I was almost like out of the picture. And my mom and dad were really concerned about that. And part of that, of all of that angst, was because I had been transferred from this public school where I was into a special education class, resulted into 2 years. But it was just so traumatic for me. It was in the tough school area of the town. There was lots of bullies around. I was bullied constantly. And then I was, like I'm 6'3", so I was just starting to shoot up, becoming 5'10", 5'11". And then I'm 2 years older than the rest of my peers as I'm, going on. Now, in the second year, we had an amazing teacher who was a formal lieutenant in the Canadian Army, and he had his master's in education and everything. And he ran a pretty tight ship, okay? When you're in Mr. Schmidt's class, holy smokes. When he snapped that whip, you came to attention. But he realized that I was bright and that my only issue was math. And he was just saying, like, why are you here? And so he was talking about a history lesson. And my other great passion is I love reading and studying about the royal family, going back to Queen Victoria to present. And so I was blabbering on about something, to do with the government or whatever. And he was just shocked that this kid, I was like 13 or something around the time. And, but that was my passion. Like, I loved to study about history and, Canadian history, and then putting the royal family in there. And so he said, well, we got to do something about this. So he got me back onto the regular rotary system. So I had history and geography and French, and and then was able to pick up, because they took me out of, I went to grade 5, and then they put me in special education for 2 years. And now this would just result in just having a special tutor for a kid, just to work on those issues. But so that added a lot of trauma, and a lot of stuff, a lot of fear. That's why I was talking to somebody just recently, and I said, that's when the door of fear opened in, because I'd be looking at the clock about 3 o'clock, going, would somebody attempt to try to beat me up today, or not, like, as I was leaving the school grounds. So it was not a fun existence. The only thing that kept me really sick during that time was I'd watch I Love Lucy, come home, watch I Love Lucy, like, for an hour, just laugh and laugh and laugh and get my life back, and as a result, I have a huge passion for humor. So I have lots of movies about humor, and I've studied lots about humor. Lucille Ball is one of my just amazing, artistic mentors, right? As to what laughter really does. And so as a result, I have the whole DVD set of I Love Lucy. But it's just, it's that angst was just awful. And I couldn't explain it to my parents until I got older. And then sadly, some of these bullies then came to my high school where I wanted to. So then I was bullied like for 8 years, from public school to high school, But thank goodness I had, I have a very solid British bulldog stock. And so I made friends with like 4 people that I'm still in contact with. We're like friends for over 40 years. And I just hung on to these guys, and just like, okay, as long as I have these guys to, be the support, then I could handle it. But, like in the play, I put 2 incidences of what the bullying was like. And so it's going to be represented with strobe lighting to really, show the level of violence for a kid. So the fisticuffs part, but also one kid would get down on all 4s, and another one would kind of like, and then push me back, and I'd go over that kid, and it was awful. Yeah, it was awful. But thank God in my late 20s, 30s, I got some amazing counseling and was able to forgive and get a lot of that out. So, I'm able to talk about it now, but for the longest time I couldn't.
I only can imagine how this could be for someone like being bullied for so long, that it happens from one or another time. Okay, but this was like a constant behavior that was shown by the guys.
And
yeah,
and I mean, it was a lot to do with my artistic. I wanted to be a singer, I wanted to be a musician, and in a lot of ways, my high school was like a performing arts school. The drama department was amazing, music department was amazing, the visual arts was incredible. And so, but bullies are bullies, right? And, which was really weird was 10 years ago, we celebrated our 50th anniversary for the school. I was on the committee. It was international. We had I think we had close to 3,000 people there that weekend. And a couple of these bullies came up to me and started to talk. And I was like, do I really want to talk to you? Like, and I went, no, I'm a mature person now. I've forgiven them, you know, let's see what they had to say. And they'd heard about my book and were compliment me on, you know, what they'd read in different articles or whatever, and what I've done with my life. And I thought, okay, and this is good. This is good. Even though it took, you know, 20, 30 years to happen. But, you know, I was still able to say, okay, you know, it was a different time then. You were a different person then. You know, who knows what the elements were that, you know, brought you to that point that you felt that you needed to bully, you know, someone else. And, you know, the other thing too was I was a beanpole. Like I was a scarecrow, you know, not much meat on me. Like, and so, you know, you just pushed me over, right? Even though I was tall, but I didn't have much physique. So, you know, however, that's not a reason to attack somebody, to, you know, to do that. And our high school, the bullying was not like it is now. Like I can't imagine what cyberbullying is like. I can't imagine. And no wonder why these kids can't handle it and, you know, want to look to suicide. It's bullying is bullying, and it's not, you know, and real conscientious parents really need to be aware of it if, you know, if they are seeing any signs of it from public school right into high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let us now go a little bit deeper in how music helped you. Like you said that your family is really into that, and you learned the connection to music and music practice by yourself very early as well. So how did this impact the transformation you made?
Oh, big time. So I think I started piano lessons around 6 or 7, and had some wonderful piano teachers and stuff. I just wasn't consistent on practicing, you know, all the time. But then once I really realized that I'm going to have a career in music, I better learn piano, you know, and as it being the springboard for other instruments, to learn how to play for other instruments. So once I got, you know, once I got into that, but what really happened was when I was late teens, so 16, 17, I was on a real regimented schedule because I needed to get my homework done, but I needed to practice at least 3 times a week. Okay. And so, you know, I do scales and arpeggios, and I do all kinds of, and this is singing. So, you know, as well as piano, but more singing. Singing just seemed to really calm me more, you know, and I'm a baritone soloist. So, and that by that time my voice had really settled. So, I guess we got to go up a couple more years. So I was in the Toronto Mendelssohn Youth Choir, which is the smaller youth choir to the Toronto Mass Choir. The Toronto Mendelssohn Choir is 160 boys, or usually was before COVID. And so we had an amazing music director, and you know, and I was being sort of groomed as a section leader in the baritones and bass section. So whenever I had the opportunity to do my own sort of singing and then work on my choral pieces, I always wanted to know my choral stuff, to go into his rehearsals, and, you know, he could count on me. So I practice my choral works 3 times a week, you know, to be able to go into that rehearsal and just feel comfortable. And if, you know, he needed me to do a solo, or he needed me just to, you know, be a leader. And that's where it started. The 3 times a week, you know, orientation, and then also breathing in between. And then now I've also found too, like, you know, so drinking water as part of the whole, you know, cleansing element. And then really breathing deeply from your diaphragm, And I saw Marilyn Horne, the wonderful opera singer, just tank up, and like her whole back expanded. She was like an elephant. It was just so amazing. I went, how do you do this? But each person's frame is different, right? So taking that breath, holding it, then expanding, then, blowing out. And so I do this in between because I was trying to really strengthen my diaphragm, just recently I've had some surgery. And so my diaphragm has not been as solid as it usually has been. And so, and go back to the basics and work on it, and get it tight again. And that seemed to do something. So the practicing the pieces 3 times a week, the breathing, drinking in between water, and having no pop, no sugar, stuff at all. By the end of it, my head was clear. I felt like, oh my goodness, I was ready to go and do my homework. And I was focused. I was ready to, to get the job done. I think it was probably right around there and that I started to really, have a to-do list. And so I was happy with myself when I got 3 or 4 things done on my to-do list. And that's carried on, in my life. I need my list to follow through and to know that I'm happy and fulfilled that day, So all of those kinds of things, and just that simple music therapy changed my life. And then so even now, like I've been doing this for over 40 years or whatever, but even just in the beginnings, I have my music therapy for half an hour, 45 minutes. And, so I love to listen to Bach or to Handel, or, lately I've just been loving harp music. Like, it's just so peaceful. I usually play that kind of like at the end of the day, but sometimes I start, with that. And I love Spotify. I just love it that you can get anything you want, right within your fingertips. So, I got all my Broadway stuff now and some opera and everything. It's just, I love it. It's just right there. I don't have to go searching for it So anyways, that was my little plug there for Spotify. I want them as a sponsor of my podcast. So just that little bit, I noticed tremendous difference, and my head was clear, and I was ready to get on to the next, bit. So now I've defined it, and I call it music versus medicine. And, I'm going to have some shirts printed up with the logo on here that, and it's really changed my life. And, I still practice what I preach. So, yeah. I mean, there are stressful days, and so, but I know what works for me, and I can come back, to that touchstone. So.
If now my audience is listening to that, and perhaps there are some parents with children who have ADHD, or even elder people or grown-up people who figure out, okay, this was what I always had, but they are late diagnosed. How can they use music and the impact of music for their own well-being?
So find the time of the day. For me, I love to just, I sort of start my day between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. But I start it with music therapy. So I pick something, it's soothing, calming, just relaxes me. So it could be classical to pop, but no rock and roll, no heavy rock and roll. Save that to the end of the day if you need to do that, because there's just there's the sounds and the frequencies in rock and roll that is, I don't think it's meditative. So then try that, and put on your favorite music, breathe. If you've studied singing, or if you've been a singer or been in choirs, breathe from your diaphragm, okay, just under your navel there. Put your hands on your stomach and breathe from there. And if you're a musician or like pianist or whatever your instrument is, then play one or two pieces, stop, breathe some more, some deep breaths, and really be conscious of your shoulders. So you don't want to be like this, okay, that your shoulders are raised up to your ears. Breathe again, drink water in between. You'll notice a big difference with your, and if kids are young or whatever and they're into their program, then if it works for, whatever they're interested in, if it's sports, gymnastics, just follow those processes of breath in between some activity. Drink water, do your activity again, and then, and then evaluate. So, parents really evaluate, did that help your child? And then even if they're on medication, see if you can have their doses lowered, and notice if that, is really doing something with them. Using the breath, using those techniques. I know it would make huge difference. I really worry about this next generation. They're just so medicated. And, and it opens the door for, addiction in other areas. I know of several cases where kids were on ADHD, Ritalin medication, and it opened the door, and they've tried everything else in the, all the other drugs that are not good for them. And it's affected them. So especially when you get into your late 20s or 30s, but drug use is drug use, and it also opens the door to alcohol abuse, use as well. So, parents, really be aware of that. Be aware of what those drugs are. Do your research, consult with your doctor. I know that people say, oh, and your doctor will say, oh, don't consult with Dr. Google, but do your research on those drugs. And look at those drugs in 2 or 3 years to where the growth of where your kid is right now. Do you want to see your kid in that growth? What the side effects are on those drugs. I just sit back and go, oh, thank you, Mom and Dad, that you saw enough. You did your research, you did the counseling, but I can't imagine what my creativity would be like if I'd been on those drugs. Would I still have the creativity that I have now? I don't think so. Or the freedom.
You said that you're also part of this association, so perhaps you can give some information about that if people want to get more details, or
yes. To ADA. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I can send you a link to ADA. It's just adda.org, and they have all kinds of programs for mostly adults, okay, late teens to upwards. We have some people in the program who are in their 80s, but there's also CHADD, CHADD, and that's mostly for children. So, but the one that I'm connected with is adda.org, and they'll be able to plug you in, you know, and we're really becoming international too. So, you know, we're hearing more from other countries that are dealing with their, you know, how they're dealing with their issues, especially, you know, in the young children to teenage years.
Yeah, I think it is important to have a source where you can openly speak about this topic, and yeah, not being ashamed about showing the story, and that you have problems to handle some certain situation. And I think this is important in this time, that as there is an increase of this ADHD problem in children, that yeah, the parents can reach out to, for example, your association, and get some support in, yeah, what are possible therapies, yeah.
But really plug in with your family doctor. I know that isn't so popular right now, but I really believe that, you know, they're your kind of first level of defense, right? You know, when you're sick or whatever. And our family doctor, you know, was incredible. And I think he really saved my parents a lot of, you know, real agony, by just the counsel that he advised, and they took it. And, you know, I always sort of describe myself as the kid that was in the square, you know, the square peg in the round hole. I was that kid in a very exuberant family, you know, 2 boys, 2 girls. And I'm the oldest male. So I have an older sister than me, than my other sister and my brother. And it wasn't easy. I couldn't always explain how I was feeling, you know? And so just before my parents passed, I had a really good conversation with them, and I filled them in about my high school years and the bullying and all that. And they were shocked. They had no idea, you know? And because you just push it down, you know, you push it down until it explodes. And then, you know, and then you got to look at your whole, you know, your whole being. And, you know, prayer and being connected with a really good church has been my saving grace. And, you know, and having people around me, even today, like, you know, I just have some incredible friends in the church that just, they know me, you know, and they know when I've had a bad day, or I, you know, I share that. And, you know, and what is so wonderful at this stage of life is no more shame. You know, I don't have to carry it anymore. I refuse to, you know, I carried that baggage for a number of years, you know. And parents, don't shame your kids. That, you know, don't shame your disabled kids. That's the only thing my parents really didn't get. And, you know, and so I had a lot of stuff that I had to have broken off me, just as it really destroyed my self-esteem, because I was struggling enough, you know, just trying to keep it all together. But thank God for my music. And, you know, and so in high school, I played the accordion, schlepped that thing around. Oh, so heavy. I love it, but it's such a heavy instrument. So in high school, I changed to flute. Light, easy, you know, fits in your bag, you know, away we go. Loved it, still do. But, you know, that opened doors. So I played in for 4 years, and, you know, junior right up to senior band. Then we started a barbershop group. Okay, my best friends, my 3 best friends, we're still connected. We lost our tenor, but we still want to try to get back together. So it's kind of hard to find a tenor that fits into that. But anyways, we did that. We almost got a contract with a major like recording agency, that they were really impressed with us. And and they wanted to expand on some things. And, you know, we were in our teens and, you know, high school and all that kind of, we couldn't tour, couldn't do any of that kind of stuff. But it was nice to be asked, okay, and be considered. So, you know, my high school had incredible drama program. So, you know, and so I was in a couple of those productions. You know, my brain just kept constantly going arts, drama, music, dance, film, you know, and that kept me happy. and and so, you know, so I know this story may sound a little bit arty, you know, but the thing is, it kept me going, it kept me creative, and you know, and I know there's elements there. What the arts does for a soul, you know, especially in these times right now, and what creativity does, right? You know, I mean, for the first part of the pandemic, I came down to my man cave and I was watching Stephen Sondheim's, you know, Sunday in the Park with George. I love that musical because it combines music, art, dance, all of those kinds of things. And so there was a couple of, you know, areas that I'd just come back and just repeat and watch it again. And the piece would just flow, okay, you know, because at that time, right, we were all suffering, especially as authors, and like, you know, where's our income coming from? Because I had all these, you know, engagements all set up, and I was freaking out. Really, I was really freaking out. And my wife works for the government, so, you know, I was like, you know, thank God she's got the paycheck coming in for the next little while, but I was freaking out. So I just come down a couple of days a week and just watch Sunday in the Park with George. And I could feel my calmness coming back. You know, I could think, okay, I can think about this in another way, you know. So there again, I'm applying what, you know, what I preach.
Yeah, and you said you have been creative and written a book. So can you tell a little bit more about your book and try to show it again, because it was not
You
good
know
visible
what?
because of the background.
Yeah, maybe I can take that part off. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. Where's that one? Oh yeah, I love this one. Okay. Oh, is the filter off? Let me see.
So now we have the filter and the television visible.
Okay, I love the television, but I was trying to see. Okay, oh, how do I take the filter off? Okay.
But I can see the filter still is because of the
Yeah.
background.
I'll send you the link, okay? So that way, let's see, or filter backgrounds. Oh, blur. I'm not so good on these things.
Okay, so anyhow.
Yeah, I'll send you oh, there we go. I'll send you the link. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit. Well, I knew what I wanted for the cover. And because I'd worked in the printing industry in the past, and I knew what I kept sort of seeing. So it had to have a grand piano, and it had to have some kind of image of music in the background. And so we found, and it had to be classical music. So we found some classical music that worked. I just wasn't totally sure about the color. And so it turns out it's a rosy color, but I wanted burgundy printing. Okay. And so because I'd worked in the printing industry, I wanted it raised so that it would really stand out, you know, when it's in the bookstore, whatever, and it does. So, you know, can add graphic designer now to the title. But the thing is I knew how I wanted it to look. I knew how I wanted it presented. It took 10 years to write. And as I said, there were some parts that were really easy to write about, and there were other parts that were very difficult to write about. And I was married at this is my second marriage right now, and there was a whole chapter in there about my first marriage that I wasn't really sure how I wanted to, say. There were some really good things about it, but towards the end, it just was a nightmare. And she really didn't understand what ADHD did for me and the boulders that I was really under. And I was in the really early stages of just kind of sprouting. So I worked in arts management at that time, close to 20 years. And so in public relations, marketing, fundraising for various arts groups, choral to orchestras, or, mostly in that area. And where we were living, there wasn't a lot of opportunity. I needed to be in a big city like Toronto. And I kept saying to her, my jobs are getting smaller and smaller. I need to live in Toronto. We need to live in Toronto. And she wasn't prepared to move. But the thing was, we separated for 3 years. But she just got nasty and just really didn't understand, my life and because it was kind of in the early stages of what ADHD was. It was the, early 80s. And, but she was an educator. She should have known better. And so I had to write a little bit about that part. Well, that particular chapter went through 50 revisions. And then my publisher stepped in and said, Ian, you can't say that about what you want to say. And in other words, then we won't publish it. And I just kind of went, okay. So I towed the line and I accepted what they said. But I had to get that out, because I know a lot of people struggle with ADHD and with relationships. And so, and a lot of people have come up to me and said, thank you for sharing that. It kind of puts on, it makes their current existence real, and what they struggled, that I struggled. So, and for me, it was about career. I just, I was really starting to bubble. I was getting lots of experience and lots of exposure, and I just couldn't live in a small town anymore to do what I had done. I needed to move, and that didn't happen. And then, the relationship fell apart, and then eventually, we divorced. But the great part of the story is I met this amazing woman, and she has cerebral palsy from birth, Elaine Kawai Walker. And we have been married now for 23 years. And so bringing our two disabilities kind of together has been really unique. And, we understand each other. We understand, when she has difficult days, and she understands when I do. And she understands my ups and downs as an artist, a lot more. And we talk about all of these things all the time. And I'm very, very happy. And, I'm very happy that she was able to come into my life, and, and that we could complement each other and help each other. And so life is good.
This sounds so wonderful. And I'm happy for you that you're shining. If you speak about that, it is really like, wow.
Oh yeah. And the funniest thing is, like, we both love to laugh. So, and she has such an infectious laugh. And so she'll get me going, you know, and we come from relatively the same sort of, you know, like we're just like a year apart in our ages. And so we have a lot of the same reference. We love the same music, and, you know, and not so much the classical opera for her. She tells me I'm teaching her. but just, you know, we listen to 70s music or 80s music and we go, oh yeah, this is so good. Like, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire and all of that, you know, that sort of genre, or would be listening on the radio and go, oh yeah. And she'll be singing along, you know, with the same. It's just, it's wonderful, you know. It just, I just never thought after, you know, the nightmare that I went through to find such happiness now, and somebody who really gets me.
Yeah, so this is really like from nightmare to happiness to joy. Incredible. So if people are now inspired, they want to read your book, they want to come in contact with you or something like that, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So you need to come on to my website. Okay, so it's Emlian, EMLIAN, communications, plural.org. Okay, and if they come on and sign up to be a subscriber or a member, then I'd like to offer one of the chapters in the book for them to, you know, to read, and then they can find out more information. Now, the other thing we haven't talked about is my podcast. So just recently, well, I got thinking about this, and so it's called The Arts Report, Music for the ADHD Brain. And, you know, as you can tell, I love to talk about music. So I want to have opportunities with artists to talk about music, to talk about their passions, but also to talk about faith and, you know, and what motivates them. So I want to have singers and conductors and, you know, visual artists, as well as some, you know, some people who dealt with ADHD, maybe used music therapy. And so it's just in the early stages. I've just done, I put up one podcast on there, and it's already been picked up by Spotify and Apple and Google. Is it Google Plus too? Yeah, or Google? Yeah. So I'm thrilled. So please check that out. Okay, and yeah. So, you know, and then this year I just want to be on more others podcasts. You know, talking about the book, talking about the program. So we're going to be adding more. It's just a little financial issue right now of, you know, just trying to keep it all together. And so you can get my book. You can get my book on Amazon. You can get my book on Barnes and Noble if you're listening, you know, in the States. And if you go onto my website, where there's 4 different tabs, yeah, that you can so if because some people prefer to buy Barnes and Noble versus Amazon, and I would love it if you bought it through my my website, and then that will give me some more indication to find out, you know, more marketing information, which I love and I like, you know, reviewing. So that would be wonderful. But please come sign up, and then we'll offer a chapter in the book for you in a PDF.
Yeah, wow, thank you so much for this offering, and I will put all the links in the description so that people can easily reach out to you just by one click, and yeah, get the chapter, sign up, and being inspired to then buy the book and yeah, read the whole book, please.
Oh, thanks. And it's also available on PDF too. So, you know, if you are a tablet person and you love reading that way, You know, the other thing I got to just tell you this, some of my friends, family, they are just coming back to me and they're saying, Ian, I'm reading your book for the third time. Ah, really? And they said, yeah, there's so much there that I missed the first time, that I'm enjoying it again the third time. Oh, doesn't an author want to hear that? Thank you so much. So, you know, so it is what it is, and I'm just so happy that the world is loving it. And but please go buy some more, because I've got some stock here, but I see my publisher just sort of run out for a bit. So there's kind of a bidding war going on for some copies of it. So hey, that's always nice. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so thank you so much for giving out so much information, also for sharing your own story and the struggles you had, and now, like, you know, you shine so much and you spread so much joy. And yeah, thank you so much for being my guest today.
I just loved sitting here with you, Swanette, and just to be able to connect and talk about this. And parents, please remember that these precious ones have a lot of feelings, a lot of, you know, don't bring shame in their life because they have ADHD. Love them, adjust with them, and you will notice a huge difference in your family life. Thanks.
Thanks for
being here with you.
Okay. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.